Welcome to the ThunderCast, your martial athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and Kade Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week. So keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod, and please head over to the Facebook page and the YouTube channel and give us a like and subscribe to the show if you wouldn't mind. We got a lot of stuff that's going up pretty regularly now on the YouTube channel. I just posted, the 4 interviews that we had from, that we had from the Herd Country Cornhole Classic. That was pretty cool. I mean,
yeah.
If you want to go back and listen to that Gerardi Mercer episode, I think I'll listen to it again. And I don't know how this guy has now become like a go-to like personality that we talk about, but I just can't get enough of that DMX story. It was so good.
Well, good storytellers make their way to the top, right? And he's a good storyteller.
That's true. So the links to the links are in the description of all of our episodes to follow us on all of our social media platforms. Also, we've got links to both the Big Green, which we know are super important, and the Thunder Trust, which just debuted their Inside Word on the Herd podcast with some pretty big bombs that were dropped in that show. So if you want to get involved with any of that stuff, we make it really easy to support martial athletics and try to help the herd get to the next level because, hey, that's what we're all about, right? We got a lot to talk about. It was a busy week. There were some Sunbelt championships going on. It was the NFL draft weekend was happening, and there's a lot of other news going around. So we're going to get into it. But first, we need to get ourselves a word from our sponsors at 304carwreck.com. If you've been hurt in a wreck, visit 304carwreck.com on the web or on Facebook. Matt and Jason are experienced injury lawyers in Huntington who have helped many people, just like you, with claims throughout West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. Car wrecks, truck wrecks, and injury claims aren't just something they do, it's what they do. Find them at 304carwreck.com. Well, Russ, the draft came and went. We had tennis team was in the SBC tournament. There's some news on recruiting fronts and all kinds of good jazz. So how about we kick it off like we always kick it off with 5 things every Herd fan needs to know this week?
Yeah, and this will be a true 5 things every Herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by IgniteLink, the Tri-State's premier IT management team. Number 1, you already talked about it, but we're going to talk about it more in depth. Content for the 1837 NIL Honors Club is live. It came out around 8-ish on Sunday evening, and a lot of people were talking, via messages to us and everything, just saying, hey, wow, great. So it's live.
It's live, and it's worth the listen. That was a really good conversation with Director of Athletics, Christian Spears. As I mentioned in the intro, he dropped some big-time bombs that fans are going to really be able to rally around, I think. And, of course, we're not going to spoil any of that content here. Because it will eventually make its way into the fan base and permeate throughout the world. So it's not like you'll never learn about this stuff. This is a perk, right? And you give to the NIL collective because you want to help the herd and you want to see us compete at a higher level. This is just a perk that they're offering. There's no secrets here. It's just it's just a little bonus for a little thank you. So, but man, what a perk it is. It's a really good bit of information. It was a really great interview. And there will be more of those. This is something they're going to do semi-regularly. So if you want to join the Thunder Trust 1837 Honors NIL Honors Club, the link is in the description. But it is live, and it is pretty cool. So we're all trying to row the boat in the same direction, Russ, and that direction is onward and upward for the herd.
Yeah, and a little point on what you said. Make sure to go to thethundertrust.com/1837 and sign up that way, because right now there's been a little bit of a hiccup that came to light after this had dropped. So they're working with people individually. So if you gave already, reach out to them. That's what they're encouraging everybody to do. But moving forward, it just makes it so much cleaner and easier 1837 NIL Honors Club. Sign up for that at thethundertrust.com/1837.
Yeah.
1837.
Let me say a couple of points that I forgot about. We were talking earlier before we hit the record button, and I guess some folks had signed up through a third-party site, right, called Give Butter or something like
Give
that.
Butter. Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a hiccup that they have seen, that they did not I don't know, see coming, that it doesn't grant you access to those things. So
Yeah, it's like one doesn't automatically know the other and give you an account to log in to get the info. So
yeah,
you need to reach out to them to get that taken care of. Yeah.
yeah,
But go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. So I think I'm going to update the link down there to not just send you to the Thunder Trust landing page. I'll send you to the 1837 landing page so that you can, one less step to find it. But you want to sign up directly through the thundertrust.com to avoid any of those potential hiccups. I mean, we both stepped up and joined individually this week. I had no problem, creating my account. I had instant access to the thing. So I know it's out there and you can do it. It's just like, I didn't even know the Give Butter thing was a thing. So if you're,
as I understand it, it predated what they did with this 1837 link. So that was the link before. So again, reach out to them so they can make it right for you.
Touch base. Please don't just get angry and be like, well, I'm not getting this. Give them an opportunity to fix it, because these are roadblocks they didn't see coming. So contact the Thunder Trust, say, hey man, I signed up through Give Butter. I need to get fixed. Or I didn't sign up for $18.37 a month. I gave more than, what $18.37 a month equals out to. If you gave a larger one-time lump sum, you probably are going to be able to have access to that stuff too. They just need to know about it. So give them an opportunity to fix it for you before you get angry. They will fix it. It's just, didn't really think about all these little avenues, but they will get it fixed. But anyway, that show is live. It's awesome. And they will be on a fairly regular basis with some of the most influential folks around Herd Athletics right now. So I'm not going to give any spoilers, but if you're not a part of it, you might want to consider being a part of it.
And I can't say enough about what these guys are doing. We have talked several times about us volunteering just to do the interview part.
Yeah.
But these guys have volunteered to run this entire thing, not just the content that we're talking about, but the guys with the Thunder Trust do this all day, every day to try to help the university. And I tell you, it's a lot of work. And those guys are just busting their butts because they love Marshall and they want to see Marshall as a university and its athletic programs continue to rise. And my hat's off to them, because they are working their tails off, and it's not like this is their jobs. I mean, they have careers, and they are doing this on top of that, and they're working a lot of hours to do it.
Yep, they sure are, man. And if we want to compete at the levels we want to compete at, this is the way of the world. You just got to get behind it. And if you choose like you don't want to get behind it, that's okay too. But, let those of us that want to try to make a difference in these ways, with the Big Green donations, with the Thunder Trust donations, and providing the content that we provide. Of course, all of our stuff is always free, but let us try to push Marshall forward. And if you want to get behind it, we'd love to have you. I would say, number one, join the Big Green, right? We've got to get the scholarship money paid for to try to cover all of our 400 some athletes. Then if you love a particular individual sport, a whole bunch, maybe get involved with individual sports giving to those particular sports. And then if you also want to get involved with NIL, look into the Thunder Trust. But all three of those things, at least two of them, the Big Green and the Thunder Trust, that's what's going to help propel us forward. So let's all try to get moving in the right direction. The Sun Belt era is obviously here and in full swing, and it's a very competitive conference, but we want to start bringing home conference championships, and it's going to take all of us to do it.
Number 2 is Andy Taylor declares for the NBA draft with the option to return. Now, years ago, folks may not know this, but years ago, you entered, you were done. Kind of how it is in football and things like that. When you declare, you're done. You can't go back. Well, the NBA, several years, I can't remember when, changed that rule to where you can dip your toe in. And what athletes, specifically here at Marshall, have done very recently. John Elmore did it, I think, twice. Tavion Kinsey did it twice. Andy Taylor is now doing it. So it allows them to go in, get evaluated, see what they need to work on. Scouts will say, here's what you specifically need to do better for us to think that, maybe you need to work on your endurance. Maybe you need, some of them may say you need to grow 6 inches, so that's what you got to go work on.
Yeah.
All kidding aside, there's a reason people do this, and it is zero harm to go do this, and that's what Andy's done.
Well, it's more not even zero harm. It's like it's what you should do.
It's beneficial.
If you're on the cusp of being that type of guy that's on the bubble of maybe being drafted, then you absolutely should do that. Or if you're on the bubble of that guy that's like, I might not get drafted, but if I get an invite, I think I'm going to stick on the right roster. Well, I use the term roadmap. They're actually going to give you a roadmap and say, look, you're really great here, here, and here. You're not so strong here and here, and this is where we need you to develop. Why wouldn't you do that? If somebody came to you and said, Russ, if you'll go do X, Y, and Z, you'll land this dream job of yours. You do it, right? So, and you leave yourself the option to, if it doesn't work out, remain at the job you're at, right?
Yeah.
You would do that. We would all do that. So you get really caught up in the graphic that gets posted, thank you, Marshall, whatever. At this time, I'm declaring for the draft, or however it was worded, and you think, great, it's over. Well, it might be over if he goes out and gets a league-wide grade of like, listen, dude, you're a lottery pick. I'm not coming back. I'm going to be a lottery pick because that's the goal. Yeah. But otherwise, you just have to go, okay, he's going through the process. Most likely, he's going to return to college basketball and play again. He just wants to get a leg up on having the best, most impactful final season of collegiate ball that he can have before he has to go pro somewhere. I got no problem with that.
No problem at all from here either. I mean, we did it with John. We did it with Tavion. I think a couple other people did it as well. But this sort of thing happens now that they've changed that rule. It happens at just about every university when you have players that are on that cusp, like you said. If you're on the bubble, and some is like, hey, would I be a first rounder if I came out, or a second rounder? No, you'd be a second rounder this year, but if you work on this, you'd be a first rounder the next year. Yeah, that stuff goes on all the time, and we're talking about a huge bump in status and pay for a lot of these players across the nation. So it's just a no-brainer. Moving on to number 3, KD, we talk about this all the time, but this is Abby Herring's world, and we're just in it, man. We're just living in it. So she smashed her school record that she already owned in the outdoor 3K by nearly 30 seconds. Nearly 30. I mean, we're talking about like, I don't mean 24 is nearly 30. I mean like 29 and a half. A new time of 9 minutes, 25.08 seconds. And she came in second in that race down there in the outdoor 3K at the Music City Challenge, which we'll talk about again in Around the Herd, but smashed by 30 seconds. And still on this point too, Kylie Mastin sets a school record in the 1500 meters at 4 minutes 23.11 seconds, and that was good enough for her to win that event.
Listen, I'm not going to shortchange anything that Kylie Mastin has done because she's set several records. She's having a great season, and she's a runner that has really started to land inside the heart, because she's you always, all the pictures of her, it's like the huge smile, it's great. It's just great. It's very wholesome, and I love it because she's just, from the photos, she seems like a really sweet person, and that she's just succeeding, and you just love to see that, right? And she's doing it in Kelly Green, which you really love to see.
Local in-state girl, repping Marshall, breaking records.
I'm starting to think that we could almost start putting out 5 things Abby Herring did this week to add to the show. Because it's just record after record. I mean, I don't know when they're going to erect the statue seemingly in the halls of the track and field offices, but she has been an all-time great, and she is still not done because we've got SBC championships coming up. I mean, what a great, okay, first bad pun. What a great run for Abby Herring, because she's having a great, great career. That's the first one.
Believe this guy. All right. So number 4, Women's basketball picks up a commitment from guard/forward Timberland Yeast over in Harrodsburg, Kentucky.
Yeah, Kim Stevens hitting the recruiting trail pretty hard. That's three new members of the herd this week. So I'm excited about this. I think I'm more excited about women's basketball and the news that's coming out around that program than I've probably ever been. And we were pretty excited leading into the season last year, but I think it's this aura of a really fast-paced offense and a smothering defense that those that watched Kim's career at Glenville might hope to see in Huntington. I would be lying to you if I said I knew their game, her style, like intimately, which I don't, but I'm really excited to see it firsthand for the first time, and to watch it with, players with Marshall across their chest is going to be really cool. But I think she's not wasting any time here, Russ. This is three prospects in the last week. So, I mean, congratulations and welcome to the herd. I think she played, Timberland, I think she played for one of the travel teams locally. Well, I don't know what they're, the Thunder, maybe. Is it the Thunder, West Virginia Thunder? I'd have to look it up, but I had seen some tweets about her commitment and, from some people that I recognize that are in those circles. I just can't remember if that's the name of the team or not. So my apologies on that.
No, I mean, but basically what we know here and the reason we're getting excited on all this stuff is Kim Stevens, if she's recruiting them, and this has nothing to do with the awesome athletes that we already have on that program here, women's basketball. But if we're recruiting them, we know that, or she's recruiting them specifically, we know that they fit the mold and the style of what she's looking for on her team. So that's what's exciting for me anyway, is anytime that you get a specific head coach change, that their first recruits that they're bringing in, they have them in mind for a specific role and style on that team. So
yeah, and I think on the other side of that, like you mentioned with a coaching change, there's also roster shakeup, and you have to mention that we saw Samantha LaFawn go into the portal, and she subsequently found a new opportunity at App State. So it's going to be an in-conference school, an old rival for the herd. That's going to be an interesting matchup. Much like Marshall and Western Kentucky used to do, like with flipping recruits and stuff back. And now we're seeing guys and gals from multiple sports, going to and from. Remember we sent an offensive lineman to App State. We got a linebacker from App State this year that's going to be playing for us. And now Samantha's over there on the women's basketball team. This is just an interesting angle to me in modern athletics, and especially amongst two historic rivals. How this continues to play out, and the old Mountain feud just continues to develop in this new era for both of these teams. So just something really cool. I think it makes those games more meaningful. You always want to beat App anyway. I think herd fans always want to beat App, but it just adds a little something different when there's a former player across the court or across the field.
Yeah.
So something cool to keep an eye on.
And I know that I can't think that it's App State, but there was one rival, conference rival that we took, I'm thinking in baseball, that they had committed to that program and then flipped after Bills came here and are going with us. And I cannot remember. It doesn't seem like it was App State, but it's the same kind of thing that you're talking about. And it seems like in the Sun Belt, we're now on that, like, not just in football, but kind of same tier throughout the conference, that everyone's in that same level. It's one of the best, if not the best, G5 conferences encompassing all sports. I would argue that it's the best.
Yeah.
And so there's that handful of schools that you're in there. So they are all kind of going after that same caliber of player, and sometimes often the exact same player. So.
Well, that kind of goes along with that geographically friendly footprint. These coaches are all recruiting the same high schools. They're looking at the same athletes. I mean, how many times do you see, I'm going to use the SEC, for example, because of, by and large, they're clustered in obviously the Southeast. Right. And you see these guys that come out and say my top 5, my top 6 or top 10 or whatever. And how many of them are all SEC schools?
Yeah.
Because they're all in the same gyms. They're all in the same locker rooms recruiting these guys. And we're seeing that on our level too. How are you not going to be recruiting the same standout athletes in the Carolinas, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky area? I mean, that's where your meat and potatoes recruiting is going to be. So if you're 5 hours away from each other, App State, Marshall, whatever, well, your recruiting base is going to be in that same general geographic area. It makes it more competitive. I think it makes it more fun, way more interesting, because it's not like recruiting against UTEP. You're not recruiting against UTEP, right? You're just in a conference with UTEP. You're not going head to head with any of those battles. And we're probably going head to head with a lot of prospects with James Madison, Old Dominion, Coastal, App, even Troy, Southern Miss. I mean, especially when you're recruiting guys like baseball players, where Southeastern baseball is huge. So it's very, very exciting to me, man. And this is where the importance of having those great recruiters comes in, because you have to win those battles. If you don't win those battles, then obviously those high caliber athletes go somewhere else.
And not to further deviate off the original thing that we were talking about, but to go hand in hand with what you were just talking about, football recruiting just put out all these different coaches on where they were going to be, and it is dominating the ring, as Coach Huff said before, or when he first came here, that we're going to dominate the ring. We were looking at Cincinnati, Dayton, we were looking at the Carolinas, they were over in Virginia and all that, and it's just all in that circle like we talked about. So good to hear. Moving on to the number 5 thing, you mentioned earlier that the NFL draft came and gone, and we did not have anyone drafted. But for those of you who have been under a rock and have not heard, we sent 3 players to the NFL via undrafted free agency. And that is Kalen Labrin with the San Francisco 49ers, Abraham Beauplan with the Minnesota Vikings, and Isaiah Norman with the Kansas City Chiefs.
So first of all, congratulations to those guys. Second of all, what is it about Kansas City and herd safeties? Because now it's Najee Johnson last year, Isaiah Norman this year. Kansas City must really like what we do from a safety standpoint. So I kind of like that. I'm happy for Abe. I think his play has spoken for itself over a number of years and across multiple conferences. But damn, man, Minnesota, come on, man. I mean, I'm a Packers fan. Everybody probably doesn't know that, but I was struggling draft wise this week when I saw that the Bears drafted Wright from, he went to Huntington High School, and I was like, God, of all teams. And then they went out and signed Tyson Bagent as well from Shepherd. And I was like, man, it's like all these in-state guys are going to the team that I dislike the most. But I am super happy for those guys. And I have a long-standing policy, I'm like, I will root for those guys to have 1 million tackles a game, even if they're playing Green Bay. I don't care. I mean, I want to win the game, but I want those guys to shine. And I think San Francisco got themselves a real gem, right? We know that. We know what Labrin can do. And as you get down to the latter part of the draft, I think sometimes it becomes more of a benefit to not be drafted, because you open up your possibilities to all teams via undrafted free agency contracts. And even more so in the last couple of years. You remember, it used to be, if somebody offered you, you better sign it. Like, it had to happen right then. And you would see this big flood of signings, almost immediately. And you may have gone to a not so ideal situation. Well, those rules kind of changed a little bit, and guys have a little bit of time to collect multiple offers and then dissect for themselves where might make the best sense. So if you were one of those guys that had multiple offers, you had the opportunity to look at that roster for a minute and go, okay, I think I have my best shot here. Now, I don't know if that happened for any of those guys, but you can't ever have enough good linebackers, defensive and special teams players. That's where you're going to make your waves early on as an undrafted guy. I think Abe can do that. I think Isaiah can definitely do that. Those guys are tough as nails, warriors, and great football players. Kalen's a little bit of a different story, right? Because I don't know how much wave you're going to make on special teams. You just got to go in there and hope you get some reps in minicamp, hope to get some reps in off season, and see if you can put enough on film that even if you don't stick in San Fran, some other teams we like what this kid did, we could use him. But I'm really happy for them. I'm going to toss in a friend of ours. I know Stephen Moffat, big Niners fan. I wonder how he feels about that, because just like Abe goes to the Vikings, he's like, man, now I got this Marshall guy who was really good that, plays for my team now. And of course, those that know Moff know he's a Western Kentucky fan. So I wonder if he's feeling some type of way about that, but I don't really care. I'm just happy to see Kalen in the NFL. I'm happy to see Abe and Isaiah in the NFL. Obviously, the last thing I'm going to say is, what in the hell? How has no one signed Stephen Gilmore? That one is baffling to me. Baffling. Absolutely baffling. So hoping he gets an opportunity somewhere, even if it's at a later date or right before, mini camps or whatever. But I'm really happy for those guys. And this year, damn it, we're gonna hear some names called. We're gonna hear some names called. If we have great seasons out of some guys, I don't see how you don't hear the name Owen Porter. You know what I mean? So super pumped for those guys. Great weekend. Would have just liked to have seen their names flash across the screen. But other than that, I hope they landed in the most ideal spot for them.
I have a little bit of info that you don't know that I haven't
Okay.
told you. And you'll be hearing this for the first time. But San Francisco was so hyped on Laborn that they were planning on drafting him.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you've got things with teams on, well, we've got this need, we've got that need, and it depends on where you pick and something. And obviously they felt like when it came down to that last pick that they needed to pick this person because they probably wouldn't be available, but this one would.
Right.
And that they had planned that if they did not get him in the draft, that it did not work out that they selected him where they were wanting to select him, that they had planned to outbid every other team for him. That's how much they wanted him there. So it was the first bit of news as soon as the draft's over. I feel like that probably once their pick was done and they waited, I don't know what the rule is, if you have to wait until all selections have been made or whatever, but I have a feeling they had him on speed dial or his agent on speed dial and said, here's what we're offering. We want you here.
Yeah.
So they were extremely high on him. So I'm kind of hopeful that he gets a really good shot. And the last thing that I want to say is years and years and years ago, you got one feature back in the NFL and that was it. And now it's not unheard of for 5 running backs to share that load because you don't want to run someone into the ground, or you want someone as a third down back. You want someone that's a pass blocking back, or you want someone that's you don't have like, oh well, we've got Bo Jackson here and that's all we need.
It's become increasingly rare to have a one-man backfield. I mean, even the best runners in the game have something to augment so that they don't get overworked, right? It's a long season. I mean, damn, we saw firsthand Kalen carry the ball 300 times. It's a long season, and that's a collegiate season. You're talking about 17 games now, plus playoffs if you're in the NFL. So you really have to manage workload, and it behooves you to have several guys that can either fill a role for you or be a situational back. And Kalen's got a pretty complete game. I think we all saw that. So he's going to make an excellent depth back, and he could sneak in there and be a starter in a couple of years. I mean, who knows? I can't say a couple of years. Hell, he might go in there and win the job outright. I don't know.
I mean, it takes that. It takes an injury. It takes, I mean, anything can happen. That's why you want to get your chance. I mean, you can't do it when you're sitting at home. It makes it a lot tougher. So when you get signed as a pick or as an undrafted free agent or get invited to rookie camp, mini camp, whatever you do, you go there and you make the best out of it. And if you stick that roster or the reserve roster and you get your chance, you make the best out of it. So.
Yeah, it's cool, man. We saw him spring game weekend, and I talked to him for a minute, and he looked really good. He looked like he had been like working hard. We've seen the photos on social media, him training and stuff like that. And I just asked him, I was like, how you feeling? He said, man, I have not felt this healthy in a long time. I feel really good. And he looked good. I mean, he was in great spirits. You could tell he was amped up in preparation for this draft weekend. So I'm really glad. And you're right. It's a lot about, well, this guy might be available. We can probably not draft this guy and sign him. And that plays into it. So while it's a bummer, you still got a shot, and all you can ask for is a shot. And now we just need our dudes to run with it and, make make a multi-year career out of being an NFL football player. I'm so pumped for them. It just shows, man, NFL talent plays in Huntington.
Yeah. Well, that brings an end to our 5 things every Herd fan needs to know this week, as usual, brought to you by Ignite Link. What you didn't hear me say was we had a lot of people enter the portal in football. So we had so many people doing that we decided that we were going to make that our feature for the week. So, KD.
Portal window closed, opened and closed. It was a 2-week window. We knew it was coming. And I think a lot of folks, especially from our fan base, are like, what the hell? Because you see names go out and very few announcing that they're coming in. And I tweeted about this. I need to remind everybody that is listening to the show what Huff said about portal recruiting. Until they can commit to your school, but until they are enrolled and officially a part of the university, they can be recruited away. So while the fan in us wants to hear, hey, we got this guy coming in, hey, we've got this impact player coming in, it is not a benefit to announce that because, well, some other school can just go, oh, he's going to Marshall. Well, we can make a run at him maybe. So if you're expecting to see a lot of names come out, I don't think you will until the start of summer classes, and we can get those guys enrolled in summer classes, and they're a part of the university. At that point, you will probably see several names get announced. Some of those holes, those depth issues that appear to be a thing right now because of these portal entrants leaving, I don't think they'll be as big of a problem shortly after the start of summer football or summer classes. So keep that in mind. It's not like a mass exodus from the Herd football program. I would put this at strategy by our coaching staff to put the best product on the field by not saying anything until they are safe and know that everybody they've recruited is actually going to be on the roster next year. So I know it's tough, but you need to remember that it's very much a tactful approach. Now, that being said, in this window, by my count, I think it was 15 guys entered the portal from a myriad of positions, and one decided to retire from football. That was defensive lineman Jordan Calamise decided to retire from football and just pursue his degree and his other passions. So I wrote him down on the list, but it's not a portal entrant. It's just he falls into it's an open roster spot now. It's another scholarship. I don't know how many of these 15 guys are on scholarship. We know not all of them were, but certainly some of them probably were. So I guess we should start. What do you want to do here? We didn't really talk about this. Do you just want to talk? Do you want to talk about each guy, or do you want to talk about each group, or what do you want to do?
Why don't we list them first? And then we can go in, just run down the list of them, and then we can go in and kind of talk about what each one of them or the group, what it kind of does to that room, that specific position group.
Okay, so first off, let's talk about the position groups that had nobody go, right? No tight ends, no kickers, no punters. That's it. Okay, tight end, kickers, and punter, nobody went into the portal that I saw. In fact, we actually brought in another tight end. So we
brought in a tight end, and earlier before this window opened, we did bring in a kicker as well.
Yes,
which we already talked about weeks ago.
Yeah, I didn't write down everybody that came in this window, just the guys that left. But we were talking about this list yesterday, and as we were talking about it, we got a commitment from a tight end, and I thought, damn, that's 7 guys.
I think all we have is 2 that came in during this window.
No, 3, right? We got the tight end, the kicker, and a running back.
I think the kicker came in, but no, he was in this window. Okay, my bad. So it was 3. I thought he came in. I know we talked about him on the show already, and we talked about the running back on the show already. But
just last week, right?
Yeah, it was last week. Yeah.
Okay. So quarterback, the only person to hit the quarterback or hit the portal from the quarterback room is Cade Cunningham, which we talked about. Running back, we saw. Now, listen, I also wrote down what I think is their proper class ranking or class status. I don't know. I went off of the mix of the 2023 roster, the guys that haven't been pulled off yet, and then the 2022 roster, and I just added it a year, So redshirt sophomore Cade Cunningham, redshirt freshman running back Isaiah Gordon, redshirt sophomore offensive lineman Jeremiah Orr, and then grad transfer / junior, I guess, Tristan Bittner. Wide receivers, redshirt freshman or sophomore Zion Odoms, redshirt freshman or sophomore Caden Bertie, and then redshirt junior EJ Horton, who announced that he would be entering almost 3 weeks ago. Defensive lineman Jordan Calamese, we mentioned, retired. Redshirt sophomore defensive lineman Jashawn Kaufman. Redshirt freshman defensive end CJ Miller. Linebacker sophomore. How do you pronounce his name, Russ? Because I never can get it right. Cian, Cayenne, how do you say it? Curlio?
It's Kian Cirilla.
Cirilla. See, I never get it right. And then defensive backs, there were 4 redshirt freshmen, Dink Jackson, sophomore Dances Miller, sophomore Jalen Beasley, redshirt senior EJ Jackson, and then long snapper, redshirt freshman Hunter Burns. That's your 15 plus Calamese that entered the portal or just will not be on the roster. So I guess we can go back through. Quarterback room, we know it's a stacked room. We know that something had to give there. It kind of sucks that Kade hit the portal. We understand why. But I think if anybody was strongly challenging to this point for the number 2 spot, it was Kade. I think anybody at this point would say, yeah, this is Fancher's team. Obviously, Huff's not going to name a starter, but dude, he's 6-1 as a starter. I mean, how's it not his team right now? He's the only one with any real game experience. So if there was a QB2 battle, I think Kade would have been on the short list. If I had to choose another one, I would probably say it's Cole. But losing Kade sucks. I wish him the best. I saw on the timeline he's gotten a couple of offers since he's entered the portal, so I hope he finds a really great situation. Going to miss the Cunninghams if they actually end up fully leaving Huntington. They're great folks, and but what are you going to do? It's a stacked room.
Yeah. So just talking about him real quick, Tim Cramsey, who was familiar with him, is now at Memphis, and I saw that he picked up an offer for there. I don't know where he's going to land or whatever, but that's wherever he goes, we're going to be happy for him, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, and another thing is he had the most reps with the ones from last year. He made a good push last year in spring ball and summer practice, and he's one of the ones, if you remember when we were doing position breakdowns last year, when the show was just a couple months old. Yeah. We were talking about, that he was 6'4" and I think 169. And,
yeah.
And that was his old from the weight from the previous year. And
yeah.
he ended up being in the high 180s and made it up to 195, I think he was, and all that. But he's got a big frame, can fill out. I don't want to talk about him for 15 minutes or whatever, but his absence, whether he was going to be the 2 or the 3, was one of those that was going to push the starter, push the number 2, push the number 3 if he's the number 2, that sort of thing. So I do hate to see him go.
Yeah, I do too. So you're right. We can't spend 10 minutes talking about each guy, but Kade is a player. I think he's going to succeed somewhere. I mean, all these guys are. We recruited them here. Some of these guys you can see are redshirt freshmen / sophomores, and you just got to think, well, he's either buried on the depth chart or, they just want to play. They want to play, and I got no problem with that. So redshirt freshman Isaiah Gordon, another guy who's buried in a stacked room. I mean, Rasheen Ali 100% healthy now, and we saw what A.J. Turner did, and you mentioned Maurice, and you still got Payne, and it's just a stacked room.
We brought in JUCO Antoine Roberts, who we were talking about, was the running back that signed during this period. So I hate to see Isaiah Gordon go. I hate to see any of them go, but you totally have to understand it when you had 3 freshmen come in last year, and all 3 of them brought a different athleticism, height, speed, that sort of thing. And he decided, maybe, I don't know, but he didn't like where he was at on the depth chart and wanted to go be a starter somewhere. Don't know what the deal is, but wherever he goes, we're happy for him as well.
We're speculating the reasons why these guys leave. We don't know.
Sure.
They might be content being here. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I always put myself in the mindset like, man, if I was a player, I'd want to play. So that's just the easiest go-to for me is why they hit the portal. That's all. Offensive lineman, we lost a couple. We know that was we were going to have a little bit of a shakeup on the offensive line anyway. So, some of these things, I don't know. I'm intrigued by, Tristan Bittner, grad transfer. A kid came and got his degree in 2 years and, is moving on elsewhere. I've seen that he has had a few offers since he announced last week. And redshirt sophomore Jeremiah Orr. I mean, good luck to these guys. It's just you have to talk about them because they're leaving, right? And we know offensive line is going to be a huge part in our success this year. It was. I don't want to call it a work in progress, but we seen the evolution of the offensive line from the beginning of the season to the end of the season last year, and it was different. It wasn't a bad different; it was just different. So, offensive line is a point of emphasis, I think, for both of us this year. We like a lot of the pieces that come back. I mean, how do you not be happy about guys like Trent Holler and Logan Osborne and guys like that? But, there's 5 on a line and 2 isn't going to make a line. So who are going to be those other 3? I don't know. We brought some other guys in from earlier portal windows. But now it looks like you're going to have to probably expect 1 or 2 more to be announced at some point. I'm just speculating, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah, Jeremiah Orr came here from Valparaiso, if you remember. So he transferred in last year in the portal and came here. With the position on the offensive line, it's hard to say number of snaps, if any, that somebody played. I don't have those stats available to me. But he did transfer in. He's transferring out. While he was here, no matter if he had snaps or not, it was some much needed depth that we had, scout team, if that's all he did, practice, if that's all he did, spare minutes in games, if that's all he did, but that's one of those positions where, people need a breather sometimes. People need to come out because someone rolled over on their ankle sometimes. So you can never have enough big bodies on offensive line. So he served his purpose while he was here. For whatever reason, he's moving on. Tristan Bittner, I think, was more of the traditional, came here as a recruit, redshirted, and then that was in 2021, and then 2022, had his sophomore season, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Again, no tight ends in the portal this year, which is kind of surprising. Now we have 7 currently on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
And you made a good point just in general speculation talk. Is this a scenario where maybe we see 1 or 2 of those guys switch positions? Because 7 certainly can't play at the same time. And it's going to be hard to get all the way down to tight end number 7 to see actual game repetition. So what do you do there? What's going to be the ultimate plan there? I mean, I don't know, but it's intriguing that there are 7 on the roster right now. And several of those are transfer guys. Maybe some of those guys are excellent run blockers. Maybe some of those guys are excellent pass blockers, and some of those guys are, weapons out of the in the passing game. It could be a myriad of a number of things. Maybe some of them are just playing in a special package of plays, but
sure,
7 is a lot of tight ends. It's a lot of tight ends, but hey, we'll see.
Well, so here's a couple of different things, and I know you and I discussed a lot of this over text yesterday, but not in person. And to kind of delve into it a little bit more, goal line, it's not unheard to have 3 tight ends out there.
No.
If you want to go with, a goal line package, or even a much needed first down on 4th and 1, 4th and inches, that sort of thing. So you do want to have some of those big bodies out there, and not just someone that is pass block only, but let's talk about famous tight end catch with Eric Pinkerman, with blocking and then slipping over for a diving touchdown catch to win the 99 MAC championship game in Huntington. Yeah. So you want to have the availability to have those. And we have some big bodies and big run blockers in this tight end room. With getting in, and I'm going to pronounce his name until I hear it, actually. I'm going to pronounce it as Matillo that we got yesterday. He has in 3 seasons 9 total catches. But when you're playing for Penn and I'm assuming they ran the ball a lot, or maybe he was only in on that. Maybe they had wide receivers that took up the bulk of the catches. That doesn't mean that he can't catch. He looked like he had pretty good hands in the video that I watched yesterday. But he is a big guy at 6'6", 260. We have roughly the same in Luke Soto that is big. But this is a guy, and this is why I brought up to you position change possible, is he was an all-conference out in California, defensive end. He got a lot of sacks, a lot of tackles, and that sort of thing. So it's not like they would have to teach him the ropes, on the position. He's already been there, knows the moves, knows the position, and he is definitely athletic enough from what I have seen of him, the size and build of him, and the fact that he was a rodeo guy. I think that he could translate into a defensive end if needed. And again, this is all speculation.
Yeah.
What I don't see is Sean Salas, who I was really high on last year. I think that he has the speed, and at that size that he has, around 6'5", if his herd zone roster numbers are accurate as of right now, 6'5", 235, somewhere around there. I see him as a matchup nightmare.
Yeah.
That could he go to be a really big wide receiver? Sure. Would it make sense to do that when, his speed is going to translate when he's going up against linebackers than it would to be a cornerback or a safety? I think that he would be better served to be that downfield threat, Cody Slate type in the tight end position and not a hybrid. But that's just my take. We could see some position changes. We could see, just a big stacked room. And like you mentioned, when you need to go run heavy, you put a couple of tight ends out there, and you've got a lot of blockers for these guys.
Yeah, I mean, let's think about this, right? This will be the first year that I think that Clint Trickett will have had a returning quarterback, right? Because he wasn't in year one of Huff. It was Cramsey at the offensive coordinator position. He had Grant Wells, and then you bring in Clint Trickett, and it's Colombi, then Fancher, and now it's going to be Fancher's team that we assume. At least if we had to pick right now, week one starter, I feel comfortable saying it would be Cam, right? So this is new territory for both those guys. They have continuity across an off season and into another season. So there's a lot going on here that I think are probably falling by the wayside on a lot of fans, So there's a lot of chemistry things and stuff like that. That's finally going to be able to be part of our offensive scheme this year. Wide receiver, I think, is the one where a lot of folks are like, man, we got to have something, right? We got to have something, because you lose Corey Gamage. It wasn't in this cycle earlier. You lose EJ Horton.
Shadid Ahmed was earlier.
You lose Shadid Ahmed, who went to an in-conference school at Texas State. So you're thinking, wow, okay, that's three guys that we knew what we had. Now you toss on EJ Horton that was in this cycle, Caden Bertie, and then Zion Odoms, who was in the class a couple of years ago. I think Huff's first class, maybe. So it's redshirt freshman / sophomore for both of those guys. And then EJ Horton was a prep school guy, so he's like a redshirt junior, from what I deduce. Add on Gamage and Ahmed, that's five guys, But okay, let's put the flames out a little bit. Charles Montgomery's coming back. Really had a little bit of a flash last year. I think we saw, wow, okay, this kid can be special.
Yep.
I'm Talik. Talik should be back and ready to go, and we know he's electric when he gets in open space, right? There's a number of guys there. You talk about Brian Robinson, who has an opportunity to break out in a big way. Yep. I mean, if you start looking down the roster, it's not doom and gloom.
No,
it's just that there are guys that haven't produced big numbers. Like Talik has made a lot of big plays, but he's been dinged up from time to time, and but when he's healthy, man, he's on and he's dangerous.
Yeah. And I'm there's some more guys that I'll mention and then go back to this point to add on to what you said. But you also we brought in DeMarcus Harris from Kentucky, and we brought in Mason Pierce from McNeese. So those are two new additions that we're going to have in that room. So a couple went out, couple came in. And then we also have Caleb Coombs and some other McMillan got a pretty deep room.
Yep.
It's not like we've got 3 on the roster or
Right.
something like that.
And
And there's some,
I feel like that's what people are thinking.
Yeah.
It's like they haven't, a lot of them probably just haven't gone to the Herd Zone roster and been like, okay, let me see who's still there.
Yeah.
They just see the guys leaving and they go, Gamage and Horton and Ahmed, and what are we going to do? And while it hurts to lose those guys,
Yeah.
think of the guys we just talked about that are coming back.
Yeah.
Right?
And I know we had passing issues last year, but when you start looking at the stats of what has actually left in Gamage and in Ahmed and everything, it's not like we're losing 100 receptions and 20 touchdowns. So I mean, it's next man up, and for whatever reason, I felt like Corey Gamage never reached the potential here that he had with his size advantage. We talked about that on a couple of different shows, and that has nothing against Corey Gamage. It could be that we're not throwing to him and utilizing that. It might be that he wasn't on the same page with the quarterback that he had. Various different reasons, right?
Well, I love the guy as a player, but it was it was weird to me that, remember, we went to 10 games in the season before he got a receiving touchdown. And you're just thinking, how the hell does that happen?
Right.
It's just one of those weird things. It wasn't anything on purpose. It's just like, it just didn't happen. And then on the same token, you'll have those guys that have, 25 catches, but they have 9 touchdowns. It's just how the numbers work out.
Well, and it was the same way. If you remember, we talked about Gamage when he had the game against Bowling Green with the very long score that put him over 100 yards, but that was only his second career, I think. So he had his third career later on in the season, 100-yard game. You would think that someone with his size and matchup nightmare and everything that we considered our quote-unquote number one, that you would be putting up more 100-yard games.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not knocking him. I will never knock the players on this. It could be the system. It could be, like I said, not on the same page. It could be the play calling. There's a bunch of different things that could factor into these things. But when you break it down, no matter how you look at it, the production just was not that great that we lost.
Yeah.
The players may have been great that we lost, but we're not losing a ton of production in the essence that I think that we can replace it. So I'm not too worried about it.
So wide receiver is one of those areas where I think you probably hear a summer school enrollee, right? That you keep it quiet, because that's a position to, if somebody goes, oh, wow, Marshall got this guy, we got to have that guy. Well, it doesn't do you any good to say you've got him now so people can make a run at him for the next 2 months or whatever it is, month and a half. So I would expect that you see so far an offensive lineman or two and a wide receiver or two. That's just my speculation, but that's just what I feel. Defensive line is another area where we feel strongly that's like you can never have too many good ones, right? And you can just never have too many to provide depth. And Marshall's lost 3 in this cycle, and relatively younger guys, right? 2 redshirt sophomores and a redshirt freshman. So they still return quite a bit. I mean, as long as Tyquez Legs is there, as long as Gibson's there, as long as Porter's there, that's a really strong 3 guys just right off the top of my head. And then there are others that are on that roster that are going to be making some developmental leaps, and guys that were productive last year that are just going to step right back in and, be a, what was it? Violent and disruptive defensive line. I think we'll see more of that again this year, but Huff has the track record at Marshall of going and finding those defensive linemen that he plugs right in, and they are instant impact guys. Think about Watts and Barber. Those guys were instant impact. And now there were others, but right off the top of my head, it's 2 guys that were a big part of the defensive line last year. So
remember what Coach Huff said the last time he was here on the show too, about we were talking about conditioning and bodies and things like that, who had made some leaps before spring ball started. He mentioned Isaiah Gibson last year, how much weight he had lost or whatever, and how much weight Elijah Russell had put on, that both of these guys transforming their bodies into more of what is going to fit their game for what we need him to do. And those are two big pieces that I see happening on the defensive line this year. Obviously, Porter is coming back, and he's his own animal. You know what you're going to expect from him: a nonstop motor, a captain on the team, emotional
just
leader,
a football guy, man. He's a football guy.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I didn't even think about Elijah Russell, and that's the guy that really popped out to me from spring game. That a lot of folks were talking about. A lot of folks were, of course, big on the running backs, which helps mitigate that potential loss of Isaiah Gordon. But Elijah Russell is a guy that really just popped for a lot of guys, a lot of fans.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just another weapon. But I still think you probably see one, maybe two on the defensive line being announced later in the summer. I just feel that.
I got to tell you, I feel it even more, and I would say two is a minimum that we bring in, and I see those two being huge, big body guys, interior defensive linemen for run stopping. We had the same kind of deal last year, if you remember, bringing in Gibson, Watts. I see us bringing in some big names. This is merely speculation on my part, but I see that that's an area of need, and that we bring in some of these guys that just help dominate that line of scrimmage.
Yeah, it's a blueprint, and it's a blueprint that worked last year. So why deviate from it? Marshall had one of the top defenses in the country, not let alone the Sun Belt Conference. So if you know what's working, then put it right back out there on the field until somebody can figure it out. Because really, outside of Coastal jumping out to a big lead, nobody really figured it out. I mean, even the best offenses that we played against had down games against us, right? If you look at the latter three quarters of Coastal, that comes to fruition again. They really, got themselves turned around and basically shut down McCall and that crew for the remainder of that game. But it just doesn't make sense to me to change what works. So I don't think we'll see that. So patience, I know it's tough, man. Patience is a virtue, and silence is golden when it comes to the recruiting game right now. But speculation for me, I think for sure you'll see offensive lineman, defensive lineman, and a wide receiver or two, and maybe a defensive back, at least one, because you're losing four.
Those are my four categories that I see us really adding to.
Linebacker, I think, is pretty set. They're pretty deep. They're pretty good. So, and only losing one, it maybe just for this cycle allows you to utilize that scholarship for a guy that's currently on the roster, or, maybe bring in an extra for another position of need. We'll see. So there's no real need to talk about linebacker. We know what we have there, but let's go to defensive back, because remember, Dink Johnson came in. I think we talked about him like during the opener live tailgate show as being added to the roster like that week. He is a former 4-star guy, came from Ole Miss, and we were like, okay, we'll see what goes on here. And I mean, didn't really have too much going on last season. Miller, I think, is a guy that I was really excited to see play this year. I thought he would play a bigger role this year, so I was a little surprised to see him hit the portal. Jalen Beasley and E.J. Jackson is an upperclassman, so I was kind of surprised that he hit the portal too, but that's 4 guys. We know that there's a fair amount there. Mike Abraham is back. They brought in the guy from Texas. And for the is this the third straight year we're going to see 2 brand new safeties in for the Herd?
I think so. But, it seems like everyone that we bring in is just like all world, I've got faith is the number one thing. And I really like Huff. I like him as a recruiter. I like him as a coach, and I like him as a person. And I really have faith in what he is building here. And I feel like I can not worry that, hey, we had 29, 30, I think now. I think we had talked about that 30 had left. I'm not worried,
And I think, I can't remember who it was. It was either Luke Creasy or one of the other fan accounts on Twitter said that of all those guys, there were really only a handful that they could see that would have cracked the 2 deep.
That was MU Thundering blog on commenting on Luke Creasy saying that we had 29 out and 16 in at that point is what he had counted.
Yeah. So really, we've mentioned that 29 out, and yeah, there's a lot in, but really you're like minus what, 14 right now or 13 right now. So there's room to just fill the holes. And that's what it's
Yeah.
about right now. It's filling the holes and making the push for a conference title. But when you think about, you're probably right. Of those, let's call it 30 guys, if 6 of them or 7 of them are all that was going to crack the 2 deep, then there shouldn't be a lot of alarms going off,
Right.
It's something you might have to worry about down the road. We talked with Huff, and he said, remember, this is going to be the last year of all these super senior type guys. So the transfer portal is going to shrink by roughly half, give or take next year, just for the lack of prospects that'll be around. So, you'll have to go back to more high school recruiting. It'll play a bigger role. The portal will always be that hole filling tool, right?
Didn't they just come out with the legislation too about how many times you can transfer without having to sit out? That if you transfer twice, you'll have to sit a year now.
I thought you were supposed to do that anyway. You could transfer once and be immediately eligible, but if you went twice, you had to sit. I don't know. I just thought that was a thing, portal or not. So, but I don't know. I don't want to get into that because I don't know the legalities.
Sure.
But I'm just saying, there's opportunities here to fill this roster. I don't think the alarm bells should be going off. Marshall is thought of highly by a lot of Sunbelt circles for a reason, and you can't sit here and go, God, this is only happening at Marshall. So, because I bet if you dedicated enough time and went to the App States and the Coastals and the Georgia Southern States and Southern Miss, all the other schools, and they're like, dang, they had 30 guys in the portal too. Dang, they had 25 guys. This happens everywhere. Yeah, it happens everywhere.
Well, I saw something, and I don't remember where. It was a national publication. They were it was on Twitter.
Colorado with 60 guys or something.
No. You'll understand what I'm saying here. It's not a team.
Yeah.
It was a Twitter handle that covered national portal entries, and they did it by 18, 19, 20, 21, 22,
Gotcha.
and now 23. And this was by far the most, and I'm going to say something around 3,600. So just do the math. There's what, 116 teams right now? 130?
No, it's like 130 some, maybe 130 or 132 or something like that.
Well, still, you're looking at 20 some, 25 on average per team.
It's like 2,000 people.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of people.
No, it was 3,600. That's what I'm telling you. It was 3,600, but divided that by the number of teams, you're looking at 25 by, each team. Now, I know Colorado had like 60 going out, but
that would be cause for concern.
Yeah.
So look, the last ones we got to talk about is we of course we had a long snapper leave, and we brought in 2 in this class or portal cycles, since the end of the season. We brought in 2, if I can remember. So we had another guy that was committed that, decided to go elsewhere. And now we've got one entering the portal. So nothing that is surprising, it's just numbers. It's numbers. You're not going to carry 4 long snappers.
Right.
So overall, I think the portal news here is just from the surface, maybe alarming to some fans because you see, dang, 30 guys have entered and we've only announced, 15 coming in. We're 15 players short. No, you're really not. Let it play out. This happened last year. It happened the year before. There's late additions. I mean, we just talked about Dink Jackson being added, or Johnson added the week of the opener. So this is going to happen. If you don't see a lot of these holes filled, there might be, a scholarship or 2 that doesn't get allocated before the start of summer camp. Okay, maybe there's 3 or 4. But all that really means is some guys that aren't on scholarship that are currently on the roster will have an opportunity to be on scholarship. So you got to have full faith. Just pump the brakes a little bit. Be a little patient. I know that's tough to do. It's tough because we all want to know what we're going to look like and who's going to be on the roster and all that stuff immediately. We want to know yesterday. But it's more beneficial for us as a team to keep some of these things under wraps so that we have an opportunity to hold on to all of, if not most of, the guys that we currently have committed or will have committed by the time summer session rolls around. So with that, Russ, if you got nothing else on this portal report, let's go around the herd.
Well, I just wanted to say real quick that when you're looking at the academic calendar, we're talking about waiting and waiting and waiting and being
Yeah.
patient. Do you know when summer session A starts?
Like 2 weeks.
Let me tell you, it's Monday,
Oh,
May
hell.
the 8th. So now that's summer session A. And
Yeah.
as you know, if they're still doing it, because you and I both had summer classes here, I think you had them all 12 years that you were here, if I
Actually,
remember.
that's why I was here for 12 years. I never took summer classes.
Well, I did, but they have sessions A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
And session A was always real early. You know, we're talking about just having graduation this
Right.
past weekend. And they are starting May the 8th is the first summer session. So
See, so here I
when
was wrong too. I thought it was a month away. It's like next week.
when someone enrolls, I mean, at that point we haven't committed, and you know the portal is closed at that point. So let's just take a breath, wait until they come in. And I'm not talking to you; I'm
I
talking to
know. I know.
everyone else. But uh, let's just let the coaches do what they do. You know.
So here's the thing. I think some folks get caught up on for the window,
Mm-hmm.
the portal window. They might be thinking, well, you have to either enter or commit during the window, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
true. You just
Just
have to
have to
put your
be
name in
in.
there.
Yeah.
So that's what the window is. Just because nobody signed in that 2-week period doesn't mean they can't. It just means they can't enter the portal and transfer without sitting, I think is what it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, hell, I'll wait another week. By this time next week, Russ, we could be talking about 10 guys that have committed and they're enrolled and are in classes and are on campus. That's how soon of a turnaround here. And here I thought it was a month.
And remember, at the very, very absolute latest, we're going to see fall camp will probably be the very end of July, if not August the 1st proper, but it'll probably be somewhere within that 2 or 3 day window. I don't know if they always started on a Monday or if they always started on August the 1st, depending on how it works out on the calendar. I don't know, but it's around that time. And 100% we will see here in less than 3 months, we will see all of our players for the most part. You may get, like we just talked about with Dink, might get someone coming in real late. But over the next month, you're probably going to see a lot of people being added to that herd zone roster and announced officially.
Yeah, I think what we're going to have to do maybe next week or as this window is starting to open is we're going to have to revisit, like we just did, the guys that left. We might have to do a little feature of all the guys that came in as a precursor to all the position group breakdowns that we'll get into over the summer, just to kind of bring everybody up to speed with where we are currently. And then as new guys come in and commit and get signed and enrolled, we can talk about them too. So
Yeah,
that might be what we need to do.
let's take this bad boy around the herd.
Let's roll.
We talked earlier about track and field with Herring and Mastin. Again, Herring came in second and shattered her school record. Mastin set that school record in a win. And then we have at that Music City Challenge, Tyra Thomas took first in the 100-meter hurdles with a time of 13.42 seconds. 7 overall placed. We had a couple of second place finishes, a couple of different top 5, and the winners that we already named, and had a very good time in my thought of having times of personal records and stuff like that. It's a great time to hit those numbers right before the Sun Belt Conference Championships, and those start May the 11th through the 13th.
See, if you'll remember, we talked about did they even have another meet before?
Right.
And we thought, well, maybe they don't, and then go to the Music City and have an excellent showing. I mean,
Yeah.
absolute shattering of a record, and then a couple of other, first place finishes, second place finishes. I mean, so we're gearing up, man. And I'm going to sit here and go on record and say it will not surprise me if we have multiple conference champions in certain disciplines, and I'm staring right at the pole vault and the 800 for the men. That's what I'm zeroed in on. Like, that's got to be our best 2 opportunities to capture a conference championship. But there could be others, because Abby's out here, like, I don't know what you describe it as. You don't just break a record by 30 seconds, that's obliteration. So she might be hitting that really, really big stride. And we could come back here next week and be like, she captured multiple conference championships herself, so it's really exciting. I hope folks are going to follow along with the SBC championships with this track and field team, because we could capture several. It would not surprise me if we brought home 4 or 5, but I really am hoping to see a repeat in the pole vault, and I would love to see Brett Armbruster close out this great season as a conference champion. That would really be great to me.
A couple of things. One, we had just talked about the 4.08 meter record for Macy Mayjoy. That just happened to be the exact winning height in the Music City Challenge. I don't think that she participated, or if she did, it was not listed. She was not listed amongst the top whatever. But to me, because we had someone else on there, I'm blanking on the name that's always second to her.
Probably Diana, right?
Yeah. So anyway, we're talking about a bunch of SEC teams that were here, not just Sunbelt, and that was the number one overall winning thing. So for her to have that height capability, that looks really good going into the Sunbelt.
I don't think that's the ceiling. I don't either. I think she's got more in the tank, man.
I don't either. I think that she 100% can beat that record, and I think Brett can 100% beat his record. But for them to both be in the driver's seat, kind of like what you're saying, I think it looks very good. Couple other things that I want to say is, if you actually go on Herd Zone and click on the results, they had a very nice color-coded on this page for the Music City Challenge of having the team logos, and then had a breakdown. I guess I haven't really seen this so much. It's more like PDF friendly, something you could print out of who did what. But they had, like, here in the 1500 meter that Kylie Mastin, they had what everyone had done in that race through 300, then through 700 meters, then 1100 meters, then 1500 meters. So it showed you their place, their time, what they did for each segment of those legs. And she was in 5th place after 300 meters, and then she bumped up in the to 4th place, and then the next segment to 3rd place, and then finally bumped up 2 spots to take over 1st place, and obviously just killed everybody in those last 400 meters to do it. And it was something extremely similar that we saw with Abby. Through the first 200, she was in 10th place, and then she went up a few spots here and there, and then just outran everyone except for the person that won by like 11 or 12 seconds is what they won by, or 14 seconds, I think it was. But she outran her to close that gap and finish second. But just so the potential is there. Me not being a track and field guy that I've ever ran it, but just seeing these results, we're not talking about fading down the stretch. We're talking about getting stronger down the stretch. And to me, that is something that you can really, really think is dangerous in any event, to where you can be the best person in the last legs of these longer races.
It's like you got to get through the traffic, right? So the easier you're able to do that, then, for lack of a better term, to kind of use a racing term, the more clean air you get to run in. And that gives you the capability to, at that point, run your race when you're not trying to get around and through everyone. So I think that the quicker you're able to do that, the better it is, obviously, for you as a runner, I would speculate. But excellent point you made about those results pages, because I remember last year when we were reporting on our final events in Conference USA, it was track and field. So they did a really good job of posting live results. So you folks will be able to watch along. I'm sure they'll be posting this stuff on the Herd Zone app. You generally will have a link to some live results and stuff like that. And given that it's the SBC championships, you would have to think that you will 100% be able to follow along. I don't know, but hell, it might be on ESPN Plus, because it is.
I really hope it is. Because I would love, I'd like to go there in person. I think that would just be really cool. But that's not in the cards. But I would like to be able to watch that, or at least parts of it, or watch it on demand after the event if I'm working while it's live or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, so again, SBC championships, those start on May the 11th. It's the 11th through the 13th there for track and field. Tennis, man, did we make some noise. We
We
talked
did.
about when we recorded, days ago, they had already swept ULM. And then we go into the quarterfinals, and we were 6th ranked and went up against Coastal Carolina, who was 3rd ranked team, and we beat them 4-1.
Yep.
Huge upset, dominating fashion. Um, Moved on to the semifinals against JMU, and JMU beat us 4-2. 4-2 sounds like, oh man, they had us. But if you look at those individual results, like the games,
It's close.
matches that were going on, like if that one had flipped and then the other two we were leading,
Yep.
it could have been 4-2 in our favor. Real
I know.
easy.
It was really, really close. I am so proud of our tennis team. Because we had been following this team from the very beginning, all the way back to recruiting. And I bring up again, like, I remember seeing that we had like the 8th strongest recruiting class in mid-major tennis. And we thought, okay, maybe we could be something here. And neither one of us followed tennis very closely. And it was really rewarding as a first-time fan to like follow this program, to get to know our players, get to know their game a little bit, and the pairings and doubles, and then just go in and watch them perform and win. So, and then we go down all the way through this long season, and we have a hiccup against the top 20 team again in Old Dominion, which isn't that surprising because James Madison and Old Dominion fight it out for the Sun Belt Championship. But to go all the way to the semis, man, you got to feel good about that, because what a hell of a building block that is for next season, right? Yep. You go in with basically little to no expectations, and then you end up as one of the top 4 teams in the conference once the Sun Belt Championship shake out. Really proud of them. And we talked about a couple of first team all SBC performers. You get the freshman of the year and Johanna Strom, a second team performers as well. I mean, it's a bright future here for Herd Tennis, man. I'm really proud of them. Congratulations to Coach Mercer and that whole squad, man. You made us all proud. We're looking forward already to a competitive SBC season next year and what we're able to do from a recruiting standpoint. I'm just pumped about it, man. And I'm not even a huge tennis fan. I'm just happy for them.
And real quick, it was extremely close against James Madison. By the way, they went 9-1 in the conference this year. They made it to the finals to go up against Old Dominion, who was 10-0 in the conference this year.
Yeah.
So we lost to the second best team in the conference in a nail biter. The future does indeed look bright. All right, so let's move on to the Diamond Sports. We'll start with baseball. They actually got swept by Georgia State. They lost 16-7 on Friday, and then dropped both games of the doubleheader on Saturday, 7-6 and 5-1. They were scheduled to be in Charleston to face Virginia Tech on Tuesday and Wednesday, and the Tuesday game has already been canceled because of weather. So
yeah, I think it was Tuesday in Charleston, Wednesday in Blacksburg. So I think it's like they did with.
Okay.
So they're going to Blacksburg on Wednesday, and that game got pushed to 4, I think.
Okay. My mistake on there. That is the only mistake we will ever make on this show.
It's been a couple of weeks, man. We're getting better.
Yeah. But talking about baseball right now, they're in the cellar in the conference.
Yeah,
they're last. And that has just happened with the last couple of weeks. They've had, losing series and then this last one getting swept. But we talked about this. They don't even really have home games. There's, going up Route 2 is not the same. There's no indoor batting cage. Walk right out from your practice facility to go out onto these games. The game's in Charleston. You're driving 50 minutes up there. It's just not the same, right? So it's Coach Bill's first season in here. None of us expected. We were hopeful that we would come in and make some noise and be in the top echelon, but the deck was kind of stacked. Those cards were stacked against us to come in and try to make that noise in year one.
I think we we have to make these excuses, right? I mean, I know you're not
Well,
making
yeah,
excuses. You're pointing out the obvious. But
sure.
we all knew what this league was, man. We
Yeah,
knew. We
yeah,
knew what it was. It was not Conference USA. Conference
right.
USA was good baseball league. It was.
This
Sunbelt's
is a
better
different
baseball league,
animal. Different
right?
animal. Yeah.
So does it suck to be at the bottom? Hell yeah, it sucks to be at the bottom. Do I think we'll be there in 2 or 3 years? Absolutely not.
Well, I was going to say what I was saying about this is I really see a turnaround happening next year.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're not out. This season is not over. I'm talking about right now. We just happen to be in the cellar.
Yeah.
We have time to turn it around this season and finish strong. And maybe you make a little bit of noise and win a game in the tournament. But
Yeah.
my point is, I think that with getting a facility and everything, I think that we are actually going to have a full year. Remember, I didn't even bring up Coach Bills got named 4 weeks, 6 weeks before the season started.
Yeah. So he didn't get a full off season to do his
No.
thing.
Definitely didn't get to recruit,
Right.
but definitely didn't even get to coach that much, So, all things said, we haven't had a whole bunch of coverage on baseball. Next year, I feel like we're going to have a much better team. We're going to have a lot to bring you that is more positive than what we've had so far this year.
Well, I feel like we will also have an identity of a baseball team, right?
Yeah.
Because not that Bill's we haven't talked to him. We don't
Mhm.
know what's going on around the program. We don't know, right? So he comes in and gets the job. He doesn't have the opportunity to like build the staff the way he wants to. I don't know if he's going to make any changes, but
Right.
he didn't get to do that. He didn't get a recruiting cycle. He didn't get to do anything. And now we're seeing as the season has progressed, the semblance of a recruiting class has come to fruition. You got like 4 or 5 guys that have committed to the herd. And we picked up an infielder just this past week from Cincinnati area. I can't remember his name right now. I should have written that down. My bad. But, portal works in baseball too. So you go out and find some pieces. If you feel like you need a few more outfielders, you go find a couple if you can't recruit them. If you feel like you need a few more pitchers, you go see if you can find some of those guys. And you put together a team that is built in your image, right? Because Bill's won at a high level. We heard Christian Spears talk about that. And he's got full faith that we'll see that in Huntington in a couple of years. And I would like to think if I'm a head coach and I get to go hit the portal and I'm going into these living rooms of these high school prospects, I'm just like, look at the renderings of this brand new baseball field. You're going to get to play in that first, right? That's got to be a huge sell, man. It's got to be a huge sell. It's got to be cool to be like, I'm going to be the first guy with that locker ever. That's a cool thing to me, So let's give it a year and let's see what it looks like after at least Bills has a full off season to put his stamp on this program and start to really build it the way he wants to build it. He was put behind the 8 ball a little bit and not being able to do a lot of the things he wanted to do, I would like to think. So this is really, to me, year one. Like, even though this season is basically over, you got SBC championships coming up. But even after that's over, this is still a continuation of year one for Bills because now he's has his first basic offseason, full offseason.
Yeah.
So I feel like baseball is going to be a bigger part of our show next year. And rightfully so. We talked about the results and stuff, but to be able to drive across town like you do and go to the Dot and watch a game, you're going to be able to go to the Jack and watch a game. Right. And that makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Oh, it's a huge difference, and I can't wait as a baseball fan. I cannot wait to go there in person. Right now, I cannot go up to Route 2. I mean, it has nothing to do with anything more than my schedule and everything like that. But I will be able to bounce over just across town, or if I'm already in town, stop by, even if it's for an inning or two or whatever.
Right.
But
right.
Anywho, let's move on to softball, and we'll finish this up. They lost their first ever Sun Belt Conference series. Friday against Texas State, they were shut out for the first time in 89 games.
Wow, did not know that.
When they lost 3-0. Now, if I have that stat wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm fairly certain I heard that on Saturday. Speaking of Saturday, they won 2-1, and that was on a huge bomb. I was there. Of course, I try to be there as often as I can. Huge bomb by Owen to give them that win, and then uncharacteristic bad game with errors and just seemingly nothing going their way. Couldn't get the bats going. Couldn't stop the bleeding on pitching and defense. They got beat 9-1 in the Sunday finale.
Yeah, that was tough, right? The only win they notch on Saturday happened to be Senior Day, so at least they had a positive Senior Day to send our 3 seniors out on a note of positivity. But a couple things, right? You lose your first Sun Belt series all season. It's the final one at home, which sucks in its own right. But if that doesn't drive home the fact of what Louisiana has done, winning now 80 straight series over a decade, that's pretty awesome. And I wish we could go a softball segment without bringing them up, but what they do is pretty dominant, and you have to talk about it because it's all inspiring. But look, Sunday's game was rough, right? It's first time all season that I can recall. Sid didn't go complete game. It may have happened, but I don't recall it happening. So Sid got pulled early, and they put in some relief pitching, and it just continued. Texas State bats were hot, and that's not really their game. Texas State lives and dies on great pitching and solid defense, so they usually don't have these huge games with offensive outpourings, but they were just hitting it where our guys or our gals weren't. That's it. We had a couple of good hits in that finale. Alex Coleman, put one over the right fielder's head, kind of a little gap shot type deal, and I made the tweet, like, if that catches a funky carom, it just hits a beam or something in the outfield fence and shoots over towards the foul line, she's going to round them all because she had like stand-up triple, And that was really most of the excitement for the Herd. It was just a bad offensive day, and sucks to close it out that way. But look, we like to put a positive spin on things. It's never good to lose games like that, and I hope Coach Megan's not listening to this and rolling her eyes when I say it, but sometimes this is good. Sometimes you need to get a little punch in the mouth to get refocused, and it's a good time to do that. They need to go down to what is it, Georgia Southern or Georgia State, one of those Georgia teams.
Georgia Southern. If we sweep that series, we will finish no worse than third, I think, in the standings. And we talked about the importance of being top 1 or 2 to get that bye. It would suck to be in second place all season long, to have it slip away on the final, couple weekends of the season. But let's go down there and sweep those girls, man, and solidify at worst a 3rd seed, and see if we can leapfrog back in front of Troy if they have a bad series, and we can get up to number 2. But we've got to go handle our business, and we know we're capable of doing that. It's been a little bit of a back and forth, up and down offensive showing for the last month or so. So let's tie it together this week and go out strong, man. Let's sweep the series and solidify that number 3 seed and hope to jump back up to number 2. This is not an excuse, but sickness was going through the entire clubhouse there this entire weekend, and again, players play hurt, players play sick, and Texas State may have had the flu for every player, as far as I know. I don't know, but I'm just saying that things happen sometimes. So it's not exactly what happened to the softball team? They fell off a cliff in this series. When you're talking about all season long, 50, what is it now? They're 40-9, so 49 games going into the or 40-8. I can't remember which they are. Going into the final series, one game out of the year they had a bad game.
Right.
1 out of 49, 1 out of 48, whichever it is. That's still crazy good. That you only had one bad game.
I think anybody would take that, right?
Yeah, right. And again, a loss is a loss. So losing 9-1 to me, let them get that out of their system. Let them feel what that's like.
Yeah,
too.
That's what I mean. It can be beneficial.
Yeah. And rally, like you said, go down and make some noise at Georgia Southern Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. By the way, it's not a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because the I think it's May the 10th. I've got it right here. On the Sun Belt Conference. Yeah, starts on May the 10th.
Okay. So it's single elimination, right? So we talked about that last week. You really need to try to get up into that top 2 if you can. Louisiana has all but clinched, and they may have clinched the number 1 seed. So it's a battle between the Herd and Troy, I think, for that number 2 spot. We really need Troy to go up and lose. Is it Troy?
I thought it's South Alabama.
Might be South Alabama.
I think it's Louisiana and South Alabama, and then we're right there with them.
Might be. It's one of those two. It's probably a South Alabama. They have the pitcher that, keeps winning the Sun Belt Pitcher of the Week over Sid, which is still baffling. I mean, she's good, but damn, so's ours. Either way, we need them to drop a series. Go lose 2 out of 3. The Herd needs to really go in there and sweep this series if we can. And maybe we can leapfrog back up in there in that number 2 spot. That's really, really going to matter. So we need that to happen. But let's do it, man. Let's take care of business. The season's not over. These girls are not going to fold. They're not going to fold. We still could go up and have things not go our way, but it won't be because they're not giving it all they got.
Here's the standings, and we are 40-9 overall. But in the conference standings, Louisiana is 19-2. South Alabama is 17-4. Marshall is 14-5. If you remember, we had a couple of rainouts down there at App that we didn't get to finish. And then Troy is 14-6-1.
Okay.
So
we need to sweep, and South Alabama needs to go 1-2, right?
Yeah. If they go 2-1, there's no chance we can catch them.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what we need to have happen. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. You go sweep at what'd you say, Georgia Southern?
Georgia Southern.
We go sweep Georgia Southern, and we need a little help from South Alabama. It's never the position you want to be in. You want to just be able to handle your own business, but that's not where we are right now. So all we can do is go win. So let's go win, damn it.
By the way, South Alabama has won 10 in a row, and Georgia Southern has lost 9 in a row. So
does it say who South Alabama's playing? Who's their final series?
I can click on it real quick.
Maybe it's Louisiana.
No, they are playing Troy.
Okay, so that's tough. They both got a lot on the line there.
Troy is just below us, and both of them, if they can split, we hope that Troy goes 2-1 and that we outpace Troy and we'll finish up above them. But we cannot catch Louisiana.
Oh, no.
If Louisiana were to lose their first ever series in 81 series, they would still, the way I'm looking at it, depending on the tiebreaker with them and South Alabama, but I think they own the tiebreaker against South. Well, they'd have to because they have
won the series. Yeah, sure.
So all South Alabama could do if Louisiana wins one game, even, is tie them, and then they would still lose. So
Louisiana has locked up the number 1.
They have to be swept, and South Alabama has to sweep for them to get it. But it's looking like Louisiana and either South Alabama and Marshall.
Yeah. All right.
One of those to get that double bye.
Let's just go win the damn thing, shall we?
Yeah.
I mean, what are we speculating on? Let's just go win 3 and see where the dice fall. Damn it.
But anyway, that takes us all around the herd and everything, and we are coming to the very end here. Over, we've got baseball after next week's show. Baseball will be the only, if I'm understanding it correctly, the only thing that we'll still have going on for this spring until we get to the fall.
Let's do it, man. Let's finish strong. Seeing baseball boys go up in there and make a little bit of noise, catch a little bit of fire, and ruin some seasons for some guys. That'd be pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah.
That would be pretty freaking awesome. So if you got nothing else, no final words, take us out of here. If you got some, let's have them.
So whether you see us at the Cam, whether you see us at the Dot, whether you see us at the Joan, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, oh, wait, let me add. Or you see us over at the 1837 NIL Honors Club as we volunteer our time over there because you have stepped up to the plate and you became a member of the 1837 NIL Honors Club. No matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. We'll see you next week. Later.